Trump is taking fire from Republicans on this. RedState.com, our old friend Brian Pruitt, who comes on this program periodically to debate me on Republican policies. He didn't write this. It was written by somebody named Streif, but he writes for RedState.com. It's a conservative website. And the headline over at RedState.com, did Erdogan just roll President Trump in Syria? Let me explain this, and if you think that I'm wrong on this, or if you think I'm right for that matter, let me know. I think this is a big deal. I think this is the kind of big deal that could even take down the Trump presidency if my particular theory about this is right. The Kurds are a separate, and most Americans don't even know who the Kurds are. So just to give you the Kurds have been, they were an Arab tribe or a Kurdish tribe from thousands of years ago. They had their own country right up until World War I, if my recollection is correct. Maybe it was before the Ottoman Empire, but in any case, they had their own country. It was called Kurdistan. The Kurds speak their own language, Kurdish. They practice their own form of Islam. And I believe it's a variation on Shiism, but I could be wrong. But it is not a form of Islam that finds any friendliness with ISIS and Al Qaeda and these right-wing crazies in the Sunni religion who follow the teachings of Saudi Arabia's Wahhabists. So here you got the Kurds, and after World War I, the great powers got together and they divided up the Middle East. And we took the southwestern part of Kurdistan and gave it to Syria. We took the northern part of Kurdistan and gave it to Turkey. And we took the southeastern part of Kurdistan and gave it to Iraq. So what used to be a nice little country here was divided into three parts. So the southern part of Turkey, right on the Syrian border and on the Iraqi border, is filled with Kurds. The northeastern part of Syria, right on the Syrian and Iraqi borders, is filled with Kurds. And the northwestern part of Iraq, on the border of Syria and Turkey, is filled with Kurds. And these Kurds just want to be left alone and have their own country. Their fighters are legendary. I mean, just legendary. They are legendary warriors and fighters. And they've been allied to a large extent in Syria with the United States. And they formed an alliance with us in Iraq. So Erdogan in Turkey hates the Kurds in southern Turkey because they want independence and they don't want to recognize him, and they're not into his religion and they're not into his militarism and all that kind of stuff. He hates them. He's constantly trying to kill off the Kurds in southern Turkey. But he really can't do it because he's part of NATO and part of the European Union, and you just can't commit genocide when you're trying to pretend to be an advanced country. But he knows that he could kill but the Kurds in Syria help the Kurds in Turkey, right? I mean, they're all Kurds. And so Erdogan wants to wipe out the Kurdish people in northern Syria. Well, that's where we are. Our troops and the Kurds in northeastern Syria drove ISIS out of that part of Syria. To a large extent. There are still ISIS troops in Syria. Donald Trump is lying today when he said, and he said this in his own military, by the way. His own military is saying, don't do this. There's going to be a slaughter. Erdogan's going to come in and slaughter the Kurds in Syria if you pull out. And they just fought with us, lost thousands of people. So why would Donald Trump do this? Well, this is where you get into the Thom Hartmann conspiracy theory. I can see a couple of possible reasons. The number one reason is that Donald Trump and Jared Kushner and his wife Ivanka are deeply in debt. We know that the Kushners are over $1 billion in debt. Trump is probably hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in debt. Trump wants to build Trump towers everywhere. I'm guessing he wants to build one in Turkey. We don't know that as well as we know that he definitely signed a deal to build one in Moscow, a whole nother scandal. But mostly, Trump needs money from Saudi Arabia and from the United Arab Emirates. Jared Kushner has gone hat in hand to both those countries on multiple occasions, begging for money for his and his daddy's business and his buildings. And Donald Trump wants to do business with them. They have been cultivating Jared Kushner. They did this whole, who is the most vulnerable, as soon as Trump was elected, who's the most vulnerable person in the administration that we can flip? Saudi Arabia did. They came up with a PowerPoint presentation on how Jared Kushner was stupid about Middle Eastern politics. He knew about Israel, that was it. And we need to cultivate a friendship with him. And Mohammed bin Salman, who's about his age, reached out to him, and they've become best buds. And Jared has been the guy who is the point man for Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is really pissed off right now that Turkey, Erdogan, the president of Turkey, keeps yelling about how Saudi Arabia murdered Jamal Khashoggi in the Saudi embassy in Turkey. Saudi Arabia wants him to shut up. So my conspiracy theory is Saudi Arabia says to Donald Trump, hey, you want some money for your son-in-law's buildings? You want to build a Trump Tower in Turkey? You want some help from us? Give us that dissident cleric in the Poconos in Pennsylvania. Well, first they did that. That's what they hired Michael Flynn for. That's how Michael Flynn committed treason, according to the judge yesterday. By taking money from the Turkish government, even and continuing to do this even after he became national security advisor, being the agent of a foreign power, to try to get this. They had a plan to kidnap this guy. So that has been exposed. So Trump can't do that for Erdogan. He can't do that for Turkey anymore. So then Turkey comes to him and says, well, okay, if you can't give us the cleric, give us the friggin' Kurds. We want to slaughter them. Which is what Trump did this morning. I can't figure out any other reason that Trump would do this. The New York Times today, Helene Cooper, Eric Schmidt, and Mark Landler, they point out the Islamic State is not fully vanquished. But here's a couple of quotes from this. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis and other senior national security officials have tried to dissuade Mr. Trump from a wholesale troop withdrawal. Again, Mr. Erdogan this is the president of Turkey, has vowed to launch a new offensive against the Kurdish troops that the United States is equipped to fight the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. It looks to me like the New York Times agrees with my conspiracy theory. And then this from Raw Story, retired U.S. general to CNN, Trump's Syria withdrawal makes no sense and appears to be a transactional arrangement with Russia. Keep in mind, Bashar al-Assad is the president of Syria, and who is his buddy? Russia. So Russia wants the United States out of Syria, and Turkey wants the United States out of Syria. I don't think the Russians give a rat's ass about the Kurds. They're fine to, even let the Turks slaughter them. They just, they want to control the deep water ports. The Russians have a navy operating out of Syria. And that's a, legitimate security interest on their part. But, selling out the Kurds, I think this has to do with Trump wanting some cash. I think this has to do with Trump wanting a Turkish Trump Tower. There's something that Trump is getting for this, because he would not go against all his generals, against the State Department, against everybody who has any common sense at all, against the international community. The only two countries that want the United States out of Syria right now are the three. Number one, Syria wants us out, right? Number two, Turkey wants us out so they can slaughter the Kurds, and Russia wants us out so that they can, have more influence, once again, basically have an alliance with Syria. Now, why would Trump pair up with Turkey, Russia, and Syria against the interests of the United States? He's got to be getting something out of this.